Hi, and welcome to Yoga for Normal People. Today we're going to do a practice that centers around those of you who are runners or doing a lot of walking outside. I know that since most of us are cooped up in our house lately, we've been trying to find ways to kind of get out and get into nature, if it just means walking around the neighborhood or maybe walking down to the local park. And so today's practice is going to focus largely on legs. It'll only take us about 20 minutes, and you should feel pretty good afterwards. So the only props you might need are a blanket or a firm towel, a belt from your closet, and a couple of books, same size. As you guys know, I have 2 copies of Bill Clinton's My Life, and they are the right size for what I need, so I'm going to use those. If you do have yoga blocks, something like this is great. It's a light foam block that is nice for sort of under your hands or under your knees if you need it. And if you have it, you can also use a standard yoga strap. So go ahead and first things first, just take both legs out long in front of you, and you're going to flex through your feet. And then inhale to sweep your arms up and overhead. And you're going to exhale and fold forward. And you can grab what you can right now. So ankles, calves, knees, whatever's close. And you're going to take a couple of deep breaths. So if you've come back from a run or a walk, you may be breathing hard, you may be sweating. Just take this opportunity to let your breath sort of calm down and settle. Take a few breaths and notice how your belly expands against your legs. And then on your inhale, lift to the crown of the head, lift the heart. And exhale, just fold a little deeper. So if you'd like to add on a little bit, you can always take your belt and wrap it around the tops of your feet, so between the ball mound of your big toe and the outside edge of your pinky toe, and then you can take both ends of the strap or the belt in your hands, lift your heart, and fold forward. So I'm drawing my elbows back towards my rib cage, keeping my gaze lifted, and just folding. And then when you're ready, just go ahead and sit back up. So a lot of times when we run or when we walk a lot, the outside edges of our legs get real tight, real sore. So those IT bands that go from the knee up into the hip. So we're going to do a little bit of work on those. So what I'd like you to do is come around to all fours. So whatever that looks like for you, if you need a blanket underneath your knees or a towel, feel free to make that adjustment. And you're going to take your hands under your shoulders, your knees under your hips, and then inhale to lift the head, lift the tail, and exhale to round. So just a little gentle cat-cow here. Just kind of mobilizing the pelvis, letting our breath settle after a run or a walk. And then from here, what I'd like you to do is just sink your hips back towards your heels, let your forehead fall to your mat. Just take a couple breaths in child's pose. So a lot of times our hip flexors get real tight. So what we're going to do next is come down onto our bellies. So you can walk your knees back slightly and then just lower yourself down onto your belly. And here, what I'd like you to do is take your right arm to the front of your mat and make that forearm parallel to the top of your mat. Hopefully you guys can see this as I move my stuff. And you're going to take that forearm to parallel to the front of your mat. And then once you have sort of that parallel angle, you're going to slide your elbow down underneath your chest so that your elbow comes underneath your shoulder. And then here, what I'd like you to do is take that left hand off to the side of the mat. You can separate your feet so that you have a little bit of space in your low back. And you're just going to press down to lift up. So we're internally rotating that arm, that right arm. And just taking a couple breaths here. Letting the belly expand into the mat. And then when you're ready, you can just go ahead and come on down. So keeping that right arm where it is and reaching over to grab your belt, or you can also use like a dish towel or a scarf. What you're going to do is you're going to take that left hand, reach it out in front of you, thumb towards the sky like you're hitchhiking. Gusto's getting involved today. And then what you're going to do is press down into that elbow, reach back with that left arm. See if you can find that big toe. So thumb faces towards the top of the big toe, and you're going to grab the inside edge of that foot. And then from here, if you'll notice my shoulders are rotated back, I'm going to actually square my shoulders towards the front of the mat and start to draw that heel towards my hip. So this is called Ardha Bhekasana, or half frog. And you'll feel this stretch into the front of the left hip flexor. We're just going to take a couple breaths here. And if you like, you can always reach further down onto your ankle, or you can start to turn your elbow towards the sky and really square your shoulders towards the front of the mat. So you'll feel this stretch across the front of the chest, the top of the shoulder, the front of the hip, and the front of the thigh. And if you need help, you can always just loop that belt around your foot and draw it forward as well as an alternative. Take a couple more breaths. And then when you're ready, just go ahead, reach back, unhook that foot, take your strap to the opposite side, so the right side of your mat. And then you're going to come back down onto your belly. And once again, see if you can make that left arm parallel to the top of your mat. Reach forward with the right hand, thumb to the sky, like you're hitchhiking. As my teacher used to say yes to life, which I love. And then on your next inhale, you're going to lift up, reach back, find that big toe. So thumb is pointing towards the sky. You're rolling your shoulder open, and then finding that thumb to meet that top of the big toe. And then gently, you're going to start to square the shoulders towards the front of the mat and draw that right heel towards the right hip. And just take a couple breaths here. And again, if you need it, you can use that strap, look back, hook the foot, which is always a little tricky, and then draw forward as well. And just take a couple breaths. And then when you're ready, go ahead, reach back, release, unhook that strap, place it off to the left or right, and then let that foot come back down. Take your hands underneath your shoulders and gently peel yourself up and press back. Find that child's pose once again. So just a little counterbalance. Take a couple deep breaths. And then we're going to come forward onto all fours. Come to the center of your mat. Get your hands down underneath the shoulders, knees under the hips, and toes pressing down into the top of the mat. And then from here, you're going to tuck your toes, press your hips up and back, come into your first downward dog. And here, if you'd like, you can choose to lengthen your downward dog to the full length of your mat and pedal out your heels left and right. Take a couple deep breaths here. And then pick up your left foot, move it towards the middle of your mat, come up on your toes, and on your inhale, lift that right foot towards the sky. And then exhale, flex through the foot, bend the knee, and open the hip to the side. So you're just really allowing those hips to sort of stack. Take an inhale here. And then on your exhale, just start to circle that knee. And you can go either way or both ways. And then once you've done that, on your inhale, shift forward, keeping that right leg lifted. Shoulders come over wrists. And then exhale, lift up and back, three-legged dog. Inhale to shift forward. Exhale to shift back, three-legged dog. Last time, inhale to shift forward. Exhale, shift back, three-legged dog. And then inhale, draw your knee towards your nose and step your right foot in between your hands at the top of your mat. Go ahead and drop that back knee. Untuck the back toes and come up to sort of a tall stacked kneeling. So hips are under shoulders, heart is lifted, and you're going to walk that front heel back just a little bit so that the knee and the ankle are in line. And then you can take your hands to your hips. From your tall kneeling position, and if your knee is bothering you, you can always use a blanket to stack underneath. But here what I'd like you to do is just simply sink your hips slightly forward. Just for a second. Feel that front hip flexor stretch. And then shift your hips back, find your blocks or your books, and place them on either side of that front right foot. And from here, what we're going to do is just come so that our chest is resting slightly on that thigh. And we're going to lift through the fingertips. So fingertips are coming to rest on those blocks or the books and lifting the heart. So sinking the pelvis slightly forward. You'll notice my knee is coming forward of my ankle. For right now, that's just fine. And then once you've done that, you're going to shift your hips back, slide those books back just slightly. So they come to about mid-calf. And you're going to come into Ardha Hanuamanasana or half splits. Flex through the front toes. And if you'd like, you can take your hand to your right hip crease and just slightly draw it back in space. Just kind of squaring the pelvis towards the front of the mat. Inhale to lift the chest. Exhale to fold if you like. Inhale to lift the chest. Exhale to fold. And then inhale, place the sole of that front foot back on the mat. Shift your right knee over your right ankle, and then inhale, sweep your arms up and overhead. And then exhale, hands come down, frame that front foot, tuck the back toes, step back, high plank, and then push back into that downward facing dog. Take a few breaths in downward facing dog. And then on your next inhale, you're going to take that right foot, step it into the middle of your mat. And on your inhale, lift through that left foot, reach towards the sky, and then bend the knee, and slowly open the hip. So keeping even pressure into both hands, taking a couple breaths. And then when you're ready, just start to circle that knee. Make sure you're continuing to breathe. And you can go counterclockwise or clockwise. And then when you're ready on your inhale, shift your shoulders forward. Keep that left leg lifted. See if you can draw that left knee to the left tricep. Exhale, press back. Inhale to come forward. Exhale to press back. Inhale to come forward. Exhale to press back. And then inhale, take that left foot, place it in between your hands at the top of your mat. And then exhale, drop that back knee, untuck your toes, and find that tall kneeling position once again. So once you have that tall kneeling position, draw that front left heel back just slightly so that it comes to stack underneath the front left knee. Lift your heart. And you can stay here if you like, or you can start to slowly shift your hips slightly forward and stretch into that right front hip flexor. Notice the pressure down into the front of the knee. Take a couple breaths here. And then on your exhale, just slightly bend down. Those books or blocks should be kind of close, and draw them up on either side of your toes. And then you're just going to place your fingertips down on those books and let your chest come to rest on that front thigh. And if you'd like, you can kind of walk your left foot out just a little bit so it deepens the stretch into that front hip flexor. Take an inhale here. And then on your exhale, you're going to shift your hips back, draw those books or blocks back on your mat so they come to about mid-calf. Fingertips come to the books, flex your toes to the sky. This is Ardha Hanuamanasana or half splits. Here, make sure you're lifting your chest and dragging that left heel back. You can take that left hand, take it back to your left hip crease, and just give it a little tug back. So imagining if you had headlights on the fronts of your hip bones, and those headlights were slightly askew, and you're just tucking them back so that they're pointing straight at your toes. Take an inhale here to lift your heart, and exhale to fold. Inhale to lift and extend. Exhale to fold. Inhale one more time, lift and extend. And exhale to fold. And then you're just going to gently walk yourself back forward. Let the sole of that left foot come back to the mat. And then on the inhale, lift your arms up and overhead. Take a couple deep breaths, let your hips sink towards the mat. See if you can find length from the crown of your head down to the tip of your tailbone. Take an inhale here. And on your exhale, frame that front foot, tuck your back toes, step back, downward facing dog. Once again, take a couple deep breaths. And then when you're ready, just roll forward on your toes, slowly come down to your knees, and then shift those books off so they're out of your way. The next thing we're going to grab is actually our belt, and we're going to come down to sit first. So go ahead and shift your legs around, left or right, and take your belt so it's near your right hip. And then if you like, grab onto the backs of your legs and just slowly lower yourself down to the mat. And then once you come here, what I'd like you to do is imagine that you're actually standing on your mat. So flex through the soles of your feet, activate through the backs of the legs, and point your toes and your hips, those same sort of headlights, towards the sky. Take a couple deep breaths, let your shoulders plug into the mat, drop down and away from your ears. And then reach over and grab your strap or your belt. So there's a couple ways you can do this. Using the strap is usually the easiest. So you're going to inhale and draw your knee into your chest first. Just do a little compression into the front of those hips. Flex through the soles of your feet. And then if you'd like, you can reach down, wrap the belt around the ball mound of your big toe, and then take the sole of that foot back up towards the sky. So you're moving this right leg to or towards straight. It's okay if it's totally bent. And you can give yourself a little bit of room with that strap. So it's okay too if it comes less than perpendicular to the floor. But here, really press through the ball mounds of your toes, up through the heel, and see if you can imagine drawing the inner thigh towards the outer hip. So a slight rotation. Take a couple breaths. And here, if you like, you can even give yourself a little bit more by bending your elbows, plugging your shoulder blades into the mat, and just drawing that foot more towards your face. Take a couple breaths. So from here, you're going to take the strap into your right hand, and then slowly drop your right foot off to the right side of the mat, keeping that left hip down. So when that left hip starts to lift, that's as far as you're going to go. And just let that right leg go out to the right side. Keeping tension on that strap and pressing through the heel. Take an inhale here. And on your exhale, slowly draw the sole of that right foot back towards the center. And then you're going to shift the strap into the left hand and just gently draw that right foot slightly across your midline over towards the left. You will feel this stretch from the outside edge of your right hip up through the outside edge of your right knee. And you can always back it off if it's too much. But just about 5 to 6 inches across your midline. If you can go further, go for it. But again, this is just designed to release some of the tension in our legs after a run or a walk. Take an inhale here. And then on your exhale, go ahead and draw your foot back through the center. For our next side, I'm going to demonstrate without a strap, because this can also be done with just your hands. So on your next inhale, you can draw your knee in towards your chest, interlace your fingers, or draw the strap around your knee and flex through the soles of your feet. Just compressing that front hip flexor first. Take a couple breaths. And then when you're ready, you can slowly either wrap the strap around the ball of your foot or interlace your fingers behind your left thigh. And then press that left thigh into your hands at the same time that you're drawing your hands and your shoulder blades towards the mat. See if you can get that leg to or toward straight. On your next exhale, when you're ready, you can gently draw that left leg out to the left side, coming all the way out as far as your leg will go. For me, I'm close to the wall right now, so I'm running into it, but you guys get the drift. And if you're doing it with your hands, you can just keep that left hand behind that left thigh and allow that left leg to drop out to the side. Take a couple deep breaths. And then when you're ready on your next inhale, come back through center. And here, if you're using your hands, you can just take that right hand behind that left thigh and gently guide that left leg across your midline. So again, not completely rolling over to my right side. I'm not totally coming up off the mat. My left hip is still centered and weighted down on the mat. Just let that IT band kind of stretch out. Take a couple inhales and a couple exhales. And on your next inhale, you're going to draw that left foot back towards center. And then exhale, bend your knees, draw both knees into your chest, and just give yourself a little hug, maybe a little rock left to right, releasing the low back. And then when you're ready, drop your feet back down to the mat. And you're going to take feet to mat's width distance. So not narrow, not so they're in line with your hips, but walk your feet slightly wider so the edges of your mat and the edges of your feet line up. And then you can take your hands to your belly or your pelvis, whatever feels good. From here, we're just going to windshield wiper knees left to right. So inhale, and on your exhale, go ahead and drop your knees over to the right. And then inhale through center. And exhale and drop your knees over to the left. So just do this with your breath as you feel it. Take a few moments here just to move and let the pelvis kind of rock gently back and forth. And then when you're ready, come onto that right side and you're going to pick up that right foot and place it on top of the left thigh. And instead of pressing down towards the mat, what I'd like you to do is press away from your shoulder as if you're dragging that hip and that knee down and away from your shoulder. And if you'd like, you can take your hands into cactus here just to help feel a little bit more grounded across the back of the shoulder blades. And then on your next exhale, go ahead and uncross those feet. Draw your knees back up through center on your inhale. And then on your exhale, drop your knees over to the left. And here, once again, you're going to pick up that left foot, place it on top of your right thigh, and instead of pressing down, you're going to drag away from your shoulder. So really getting a stretch from this hip point down through the front of my hip flexor down into the front of my quad. Again, just letting the body and gravity work together to find some release. And then on your next inhale, come back through center, uncross your legs, and you can walk your feet back in towards the midline. And if you'd like, just press down into the soles of your feet, lift your pelvis, and then as if you're just letting each vertebrae drop down, drop the pelvis back down to the earth. And when you're ready, go ahead and draw the knees into your chest, separate the knees, and draw a couple circles on the ceiling. And whenever you feel it, go ahead and drop into Savasana. And as you rest in your Savasana, I'd like you to imagine filling a balloon in your belly with your breath. Allow it to expand and take up space. And as you exhale, imagine just deflating it and drawing belly button towards spine. Please stay here for as long as you'd like. Namaste.